I've always felt like taking on new habits or entertaining new ideas can be one of the most exciting feelings, but oftentimes staying accountable to the follow-through is really challenging. For a long time, I was producing work at a really fast pace, and I was just constantly putting out new music, new illustrations. I started a podcast, I was teaching myself new skills, but something changed and all of my creativity felt like it came to a halt. I took a year off of drawing, which was honestly kind of devastating at the time, but something needed to change. I needed to develop some sort of system for accountability. I think a lot of us feel like if we're not following through with a habit, or if we're not completing an idea or taking on a new project in a timeline that we deem as acceptable, it's because we think that we've somehow failed or we're not doing the work. The reality is that we just need better accountability systems, because sometimes things just take longer than we expect them to, and that's perfectly fine. So for me, it started to feel like I wasn't making progress in any of the areas of my life that I wanted to. I was struggling to finish projects and had illustrations that were half drawn. I still to this day have tattoos I started on myself that are incomplete, and every time I look at them, I'm reminded that I have work to do. I decided I wanted to invite more opportunities for accountability into my life, so I asked my partner if he would be my accountability buddy. And I know this sounds sort of silly, but this has resulted in a really great system for us. So to give a little context, this started out as us just sharing a Google Doc with short and long-term goals that we would just check in on from time to time. We try to check in every Friday, and something that's worked really well for us is tying a reward to these check-ins. It is so much easier to accomplish something that would otherwise feel like a chore if you find a way to attach something that you enjoy to it. So in our case, we decided that every Friday we would go to a local coffee shop and we would do our check-in over a latte. And it was a really great way to solidify this habit, because not only was it an opportunity for us to stay accountable to our habits and just connect, but it was also kind of like a fun little date every Friday morning. Finding the right system for accountability in your own life might look different than this, but for those of you who maybe are interested in the idea of a check-in, let me just quickly break down what it looks like for me and my partner. Typically, we'll just walk through our week, so I'll share big wins, small wins, and even the things that I didn't accomplish that I was hoping to during the week, so that I can say it out loud and kind of admit that, hey, I didn't do the thing that I sought to do, and that's okay. This isn't about setting tons of goals or productivity for productivity's sake. It's actually about creating time and opportunities to really reflect on what you've accomplished over the past week and what it is that you really want to do moving forward. Doing these check-ins can also help you get a better sense of what's really truly possible. I think because our society is so fast-paced, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to accomplish a million things a day. And while that's great, if you can keep up with the momentum, it's oftentimes not sustainable, and that's a really quick way to get burnt out. I speak from experience. There are weeks where I look at my planner and it is jam-packed with shit, and I have no right telling myself that I can even do half of it. And yet I will beat myself up because I didn't accomplish some of the goals that I set out to. I think the more that you do these check-ins, be them with another person, or even if you just do it alone, if you have that much determination, I don't know, that you don't need another person to help you, you'll start to get a much better sense of what's realistic in your day-to-day life. Another benefit to doing these check-ins is that it sort of forced me to schedule out time blocks to do nothing. This is something I really deeply struggle with. I hate having idle time. It feels uncomfortable to me to not work on a project or be doing something for work or school, and I feel totally restless and like gross if I'm not working on something. So I'm trying to adopt more time for slow activities and time to just do nothing. It's okay to rot some days. Something else that's really helpful because of these weekly check-ins and this whole accountability system is that it forces you to say things out loud that you've accomplished that are positive. Our world is just functioning so fast all of the time. It's easy to lose sight of the small wins and make them out to be really much smaller than they actually are. I wanted to share the 3 really crucial insights that I've gained from this process of trying to be more accountable. The first is that it is such a benefit to break large tasks and projects down into small things. And I know that this is advice that's all over the place, right? I'm sure you've heard this before. But I would say take it a step further and break things down as granular as possible. A really great example of this, a couple of months ago, I was commissioned to do an illustration for a publication. And I really wanted to take the project on, but at the time I said yes and found myself just sort of in a slump. I didn't really know how to tackle this project, but I knew there was a pressing deadline and I had to make it happen. I decided to break it down into very tiny pieces. I mean, like microscopic. So, for example, grab my sketchbook and just put it on my desk. And these sorts of actions are so simple, and they take the sort of daunting nature away from this sort of massive project that I had to do. By putting my sketchbook and my Micron pens out on my desk, I'm reducing friction and making it really accessible to draw. I don't have to, find my sketchbook or figure out which pens I want to use. It's all ready to go. And by taking the pressure off of myself to figure out a concept, sit down, do some sketches, and then finalize something, all of that's eliminated, and instead I'm able to just piece by piece do these little 5-minute activities that are all contributing to a larger picture. When I approached this illustration in this way, I was able to finish something that I was really proud of because I didn't put the pressure on myself to finish it in one sitting, which is usually my approach, if I'm being honest. Along with this idea of breaking things into smaller tasks is, of course, the tried and true Pomodoro technique. I think there's a misconception that in order to get things done, we need to fill every single second of our day with productivity, and that's just not the case. You can accomplish a lot in 5 minutes. I love to use my Apple Watch for this. I just set a 5-minute timer. It's 2 clicks away at any given time. And if I am struggling to finish something that I'm designing for work, usually it's not going to take me that long. I just don't feel like doing it because I'm being lazy, or I don't feel like sitting down and staring at the screen. But by setting a timer, I can usually just get myself into the right headspace for 5 to 10, 15, 20 minutes, do a little bit of deep work, and then I'm like, oh, I finished that task that's been weighing on me all week. Generally, when I accomplish these small tasks and I use the Pomodoro technique, I find that I'm able to cross things off of my to-do list much faster, and I get a nice kick of that good old analog dopamine that I've been talking about so much lately. A clear to-do list will always give you a better outcome than doom scrolling. So I highly recommend just writing the things out that you want to accomplish in your day-to-day and just start doing it. Even if it feels really hard, just set a timer and just make yourself fucking do it. The next thing I want to share is probably the most important discovery I've had in my entire adult life. And it sounds a little bit silly and simple, but if you keep writing the same thing down on your to-do list over and over again, week after week, and you're not accomplishing it or taking initiative to do it, you need to ask yourself why. It can be a little bit difficult sometimes to discern between something that's just a long-term project that maybe you don't have time for in the moment versus something that's just not really meant to be. If you see the same thing keeps coming up and you just keep crossing it off and then rewriting it the next week, there's a really good chance that it's just not for you, or you just don't care enough about that thing to do it, and you need to give yourself permission to be okay with that. A great example of this from my own experience is my relationship to reading. I used to love reading. I would just soak up information like a sponge, and I got a lot of joy and peace from reading books. But lately, that's just not the case. Week after week at these check-ins with my partner, I would say, I'm gonna read 20 minutes every day. Well, that didn't work. I'm gonna read 5 minutes every day. That didn't work. I'm gonna read 1 page every day. I was getting nowhere with my reading habit, and so I had to reflect on why. If I'm honest with myself, I think that I'm supposed to read in order to be a well-informed, intelligent human being, and I just don't feel like reading lately. It doesn't feel fun for me. My brain is already so inundated with information, and I just don't really feel like smushing more content into my noggin right now, and that's perfectly okay. My point is, if you find yourself trying to be something because you feel like in order to be productive or creative, you have to do some stupid task that someone on YouTube told you have to do every day, just cut it out and see if you feel better. On the flip side, there are instances where I've written the same thing down over and over again, and I really do care about it, and I really do want to accomplish it. But the problem is friction. And this is something that I think a lot about, right? Is reducing friction in my environment and creating the perfect circumstances for creativity to be easy and accessible. For a long time, I wanted to start a YouTube channel, and I just kept holding off on doing so. I didn't feel like looking for my ND filter. I didn't feel like making sure my memory card had room on it. Half the time, all of the batteries in my house were dead, and I just didn't feel like setting up my tripod. I was being lazy, and I think a lot of the time we don't accomplish things because we just don't feel like going through the process of setting it up. It's not that we don't want to actually do the thing, right? Like, I like talking in front of the camera and sharing ideas, but I don't like rustling around in a bag of gear trying to find the right cable or the right lens. That's not fun. So by reducing friction in my environment, I've made it much easier to follow through with this desire to create videos. And now I just leave my tripod out and ready to go. I leave my ND filter somewhere that's really accessible, and my partner and I have gotten some backup batteries so that we never have to go with dead batteries. If you're hanging out in an environment that's like super cluttered and messy, and all you want to do is like paint, but you can't find your paintbrushes, you're probably never gonna fucking paint, and that makes sense. So clean up your room, put your paintbrushes somewhere where you can find them, and start painting shit. The final key takeaway from these accountability check-ins is that I need to reflect more on my wins, and I'm sure you probably do too. I think I'm constantly speaking to this, that our society and our world is operating at hyperspeed, and we don't often get the time to just stop and slow down. For creative folks especially, this hinders our ability to kind of relish in the things that we've achieved. For me, I will release an album and immediately be on to the next thing. I have a hard time soaking in the accomplishment and being proud of myself. I don't know how to celebrate things because I'm just ready for what's next. When you're constantly reflecting and checking in on the things that you're accomplishing, and you start to really realize just how much time it takes, all of the granular steps that go into writing an album, for example, and mixing and mastering and just the release, the launch, there is so much that goes into a big project like that. But by the time you let go of it and it's out in the world, it's easy to just be so ready to sprint into the next shiny thing. For me, that has resulted in a feeling that I'm not doing enough. These weekly check-ins, like put simply, were just allowing me to see that I was making progress from week to week. And that progress is something to celebrate. You don't have to jump from one thing to the next. You don't have to be high output all of the time to make an impact and to be creative. We are constantly being pressured to create more and faster. And by putting more pressure on ourselves, we're not doing ourselves a service. So yeah, accountability check-ins. It sounds super simple, and it honestly is, as long as you can keep up with it. And maybe you don't have the luxury of somebody to do this with every week, or maybe you just don't have the time, or your life is just like too chaotic right now. And that's totally fine too. And I think there are other ways to accomplish this sort of sense of accountability. Maybe it's just keeping a to-do list that you check once a month, or maybe it's having a Google Doc where you have a list of short-term goals. But I highly recommend just trying to break things down into smaller pieces and be more forgiving of yourself, especially if you're creative. We need to slow down to have output that actually matters. Take some pressure off of yourself. It's okay. Thanks for watching this video. I am still quite new to YouTube, so if this video found your eyeballs, I greatly appreciate your time, and I hope that you got something of value from this. Right now, I've just been kind of using this space to ramble about creativity and productivity and like minimalism and design and all kinds of stuff. So if you like this sort of content, I would love if you subscribed, like this video, do all the things that all the other YouTubers tell you to do that I feel very uncomfortable saying. Take some pressure off of yourself. Go create something because you want to, and go touch some grass, please. Bye. 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 Bye.